Hello and welcome to all. From the ancient vertical axis windmills, dating back over 1,000 years, to the disturbing but sublime rice straw sculptures of the Wara festival, these are the 10 most bizarre and unusual things you will see in your lifetime. Let's get started. If one day you come across a gypsy cob horse, also called Irish cob, you will certainly have the same impression as me. He is a horse with an excellent temperament, a great gentleness, and an incredible love for humans. He only seeks affection, and for that, he is ready for anything. He is even nicknamed the dog horse because of his characteristic kindness. But unfortunately, an amazing physical asset of this horse makes that some humans reject him. Whether it is a male or female, this horse proudly wears a mustache that is so long that it sometimes even reaches 18 centimeters. In some, this mustache is so bushy that it almost becomes a beard. Because of this feature, let's admit it, rather particular, this horse must therefore undergo the mockery and nastiness of some internet users who are convinced that we would be better off shaving all the cob gypsy of the world, and quickly. But fortunately, others insist and even find funny a horse with a mustache. As for the cob gypsy, in the last news, they are still not able to read what is said about them on the internet, and believe me, it is much better that way. For many years, farmers in Niigata, Japan were disappointed. Although they often had good harvests, they were usually blessed with abundant rain and fertile soil, but they always had the same problem, an excess of rice waste called in Japanese wara, which they didn't know what to do with. Of course, like their neighbors in other Japanese provinces, they gave it to the cattle, but for them, it was not enough. They had to find another solution. And by dint of thinking about it, they finally had an idea. In Niigata, in 2008, they invented the Wara festival. From now on, every year, the Wara is transformed under the hands of skillful farmers into real, terrifying, and appalling works of art. During the Wara Art Festival, Awasekagata Park in Niigata becomes a refuge for gorillas, rhinos, and fierce and oversized lions. The only small inconvenience during the whole festival is that the people of Niigata, victims of the success of their sculptures, have many more tourists than usual, but no matter, the Wara festival has made the pride of the whole region, and now no more rice waste is lost. Here are inhabitants full of imagination. Let's make a small parenthesis. If you like this video, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all the notifications. Let's go on. Iran is largely a dry and arid country, so its inhabitants had to be inventive to irrigate their arable land. Despite their best efforts, the performance wasn't really up to their expectations, and they really needed a bright idea to fix their little problem. Persian engineers then thought of using the energy of the wind to rotate blades on an axis, which would provide free and almost eternal energy. This is how the first windmills were invented in the history of mankind, in the year 670 BC. These ingenious wind devices were then erected all over Iran, but in much greater quantities in the province of Khorasan, located in the northeast of the country. This site was chosen because it was part of a mountainous area and was, therefore, an extremely windy place. In Nashtifan, for example, there were so many mills that the city was nicknamed the Ancient City of Mills, and even the brave Don Quixote could not have shot them all down. Thanks to the controlled power of the wind, Persian engineers were able to solve the irrigation problems their people were experiencing. However, they still had one detail left to settle, and not the least of them indeed. They had to create structures that would not be excessively expensive to manufacture, without being vulgar buildings whose ugly appearance could harm the magnificent urban planning of the city. But far from being discouraged by this new obstacle, the skillful Persian builders managed to erect splendid windmills with original architecture, using only materials as common as wood, straw, and clay. And since their blades were arranged on a vertical axis like a turnstile, the energy was transferred directly down the mast to the grindstone, in a much more efficient way than with a horizontal axis windmill. These ingenious devices have thus made it possible to irrigate these arid and desolate regions while guaranteeing the integrity of their architectural heritage to the ancient Persians. Bees are extremely sociable insects, and the time they do not spend foraging for flowers, they spend it working in teams to set up the hive and take care of their queen. Indeed, the queen represents the essence of the colony, and if she dies, all the bees will perish with them. Hence the vital need to protect the queen bee from any source of danger. Also, poor bees have many predators, all of which are attracted by the irresistible nectar they produce in their abdomen. Therefore, they need to know how to defend themselves against unwanted intruders. That's why bees have a venomous sting, which is extremely painful for any human or animal. Alas, even if their defense system remains very effective against most of their predators, it is nevertheless a double-edged sword. For by planting their sting in the body of their attackers, bees are inevitably condemned to die, making their sting a kind of kamikaze attack. And when a hive is attacked, the colony deplores the huge losses each time. The bees, therefore, had to develop a more effective defensive tactic, but above all, one that would not involve suicide stings. Thanks to their incredible ingenuity and close collaboration, some bee colonies finally found the solution. As they cluster together to form a compact bunch, the bees shake their abdomens upwards, creating a wave that spreads like the wave of supporters doing the ola in a soccer stadium. Thanks to this jerky movement, the entire hive seems to move as a single entity, while producing a terrible screeching sound that can be heard from hundreds of meters away. This audiovisual effect is extremely effective in keeping predators away from the hive without harming any bees. Let's continue to talk about bees, but the Alsatians this time. Their honey is one of the best in all of Europe, thanks to the diversity of flowers that grow naturally in the mountains and forests of the region. But it must be said that this abundant diversity of plants has not been able to satisfy the Alsatian bees, who are constantly trying to improve the recipe for their sweet nectar. So to make their honey even more tempting and irresistible, they do not hesitate to travel dozens of kilometers every day to come across the rare or exotic flower. Thanks to the relentlessness of these little beasts, we find in Alsace 6 varieties of honey, each one more delicious than the other, and whose secret of production is jealously guarded by the bees. But as they went further and further in their quest for nectar, the bees ended up smelling the irresistible smell of sugar, which they love, and believing they had found the ideal flower pasture, flocks of bees came to the place. But it wasn't really a field of flowers that exhaled this sweet scent, but rather a candy factory, the famous M&Ms. As the hungry bees could not be reasoned with, no one could stop them from going to the bottom of the enormous vats, containing the remains of these famous chocolate dragées coated in colors. And as was to be expected, that year's honey harvest in Alsace was a real eye-opener for the poor beekeepers. They were indeed shocked to see that their honey production had taken on shades of blue and green, instead of its usual golden color. Fortunately, the plant managers decided to cover their tanks from now on, thus preventing bees from entering them. The bees will look for their nectar elsewhere, but they will not soon forget their fabulous feast at the plant. Spring is approaching for the birds, and with it comes the mating season. Our volatile friends must therefore make their nests to be able to reproduce in all serenity, and raise their hungry young birds. But unfortunately for their male birds, the majority of the females of their species have luxurious tastes in terms of habitat, and therefore cannot be satisfied with vulgar nests made of straw and twigs. Thus, to win the hearts of these ladies, the males have to build real 5-star palaces, located in a very quiet and sunny place. To maximize their chances of mating, male birds will take the big game out of construction and occasionally transform themselves into skilled architects and interior designers. Little by little, the bird makes its nest, it is well known, and our volatile friends will thus compete in ingenuity to build a good small cozy nest. Of course, each species of bird has its own architectural specificities, and a male stork will not have the same taste like a bad hummingbird nor the same dimensions. But after a long, hard and conscientious work, finally comes the time to show the place to his winged sweetheart, and only the latter will then be able to estimate if this little love nest will be able to shelter their lovemaking, or if it will only be a nest for hardened bachelors. Look at this tree that literally turns into a fountain every time it rains. Located in a village called Donosa, in the southeast of Montenegro, this old mulberry tree gushes water directly from its trunk whenever it rains heavily. This natural phenomenon is extremely rare, and for a long time, it was believed that the tree possessed magical virtues. But the explanation of the phenomenon has nothing magical and lies in the water table just below the village. They are already full to the brim, and every time it rains, they are flooded and literally overflow the ground. The hydraulic pressure is then so strong that the water ends up gushing out of the tree trunk like a fountain made of wood. A unique show that you will certainly not see every day. Tired of coming back empty-handed from fishing? Do you sometimes come back with worn boots or cans instead of a nice silverfish? Then you need to go to the Maldives for a fishing course, where you will be chaperoned by the best anglers in the world. Maldivian fishermen have indeed inherited a fabulous ancestral fishing technique with formidable efficiency. Lining up on the edge of a large boat, skillful fishermen throw baitfish, while water is continuously sprayed to create a wriggle that attracts nearby tuna. Using special hooks, fishermen simply cast their lines and reel them in immediately. The boat quickly becomes full to the brim with fish, and if after having done a training course with these admirable fishermen, it still doesn't bite, well, you should just change your hobby. Seeing these trees, you will inevitably conclude that a painter has repainted their trunks with shimmering colors, according to his artistic fantasies. But this is not so, for it is Mother Nature herself who is the author of these magnificent paintings. These trees with iridescent trunks are in fact rainbow eucalyptus trees, which are found in abundance in certain islands of Indonesia and the southern Philippines. Presenting almost the entire spectrum of colors visible in a rainbow, the trunks of these trees offer a magnificent contrast with the rest of the landscape. In addition to their beauty, the bark of these trees and aromatic leaves produces excellent therapeutic oil essences and even repel mosquitoes. Here is a tree that every botanist would like to have in his garden, but if you don't have one, you can always take out your color palette and start painting on canvas or rather on a tree trunk. And that's it for today. Which of these natural rarities impressed you the most? Tell us in the comments, and see you soon for new discoveries out of the ordinary.